Oh my goodness, it's the second Saturday in 2022 and you are tuned in to Junkanoo 242. Good morning everybody. Good morning to our Facebook listeners and viewers. Good morning to our lovely family of islands and good morning to you. This is Junkanoo 242. We are in the E-Shack this morning. Hope everybody is doing well and just getting on well. Morning, Arlene. Good morning. How you doing? I love the shirt you have on, man. You just popping in the pink, man.
Never saw it before. Hey, good morning. Good morning.
Don't look at me.
I wonder who was the person who put me in this bright pink. My goodness. Whistle and I'll point.
You put a beautiful color and a beautiful person together. You got a beautiful package. You know, but don't tell the ball head chairman that because you know he's get chairman. How you doing, bro?
What are you talking to me? Why you sound like that whistle got to touch your arm across?
Listen, you know, I have been listening back to the shows, and I think that there's a filter on my whistle coming across the broadcast. I have to figure this out, man.
It might be some advice quarantine.
You know, good morning, everybody. Just want to let you know that we have another great show lined up for you guys.
Awesome.
I want to tell you this morning I feel as though like I am sitting in the center of just Junkanoo greatness right now. All right, we have a lot of, I would say a lot of personalities and Junkanoo builders among us. Before we go any further, Arlene, get us started with our prayer, please.
Absolutely. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, for the gift of life, we give you thanks. For our nation, especially on this majority rule weekend, we pray for peace, prosperity and principle, recovery and restoration, and for ourselves. We pray for wisdom to use your gifts wisely, especially the gift of Junkanoo, so that we may honor you, serve your people, build better communities, a better Bahamas, and a better world. Amen.
Amen. Proud to be Bahamian. What y'all got for us this morning, man? This one should be one. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Well, Arlene, you just said it, man. This is what? Majority rule weekend, eh?
This is the majority rule weekend, yes.
All right. I think that's definitely something that we should all be proud of.
Absolutely.
A big day in the history of our country.
Very much so. Very much so.
And we get to see, we've been celebrating it now for how many years? 4 years? 5 years?
Yeah, not more than that, really.
4 or 5
We've
years.
always remembered it, but it's never become a public holiday. Right.
Celebrating it, yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's my proud to be Bahamian moment this morning.
Amen. That should do it.
Yes.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted to have you joining us again this morning. This morning, as Darren had advertised on Facebook in particular, we are talking about Junkanoo costumes. There's so much to discuss and so many different opinions. And believe me, when I tell you we bring out the big guns this morning, we brought out the big guns. This ain't no chopped chicken liver this morning. This the big time. And so we are going to get into this hot and necessary conversation as soon as we return from our first break. We'll be right back.
Turning down some more, you know.
There's a pandemic going around. We have to work hard to stay around. Keep yourself and your family safe. And thank God for amazing grace. There's a solution you must choose. It will help me and help you too. It's available everywhere. Don't take too long, I'll meet you there. I got mine, you get yours. Get vaccinated. I got mine, you get yours. Get vaccinated. It's protecting me, protecting you. It's protecting the country too. I got mine, you get yours, get vaccinated. I got mine, you get yours, get vaccinated. I got mine, you get yours, get vaccinated. It's protecting me, protecting you, it's protecting the country too. I got mine, you get yours, get vaccinated.
Make your appointment today at vax.gov.bs. That's vax.gov.bs. This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Health in conjunction with Bahamas Information Services.
Respect the sign. When vehicles without an accessible parking permit use a parking space designated for persons with disabilities, even for just a minute, that's 60 seconds too long. The abuse of accessible parking spaces is a daily frustration for persons with disabilities. It is inconsiderate, insensitive, and hinders persons with disabilities from effectively conducting business and actively participating in community life. Never park in a space reserved for people with disabilities unless you have a permit to do so. It is the right and respectful thing to do. This message is brought to you by the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities, a unit in the Ministry of Social Services and Community Development. For more information, visit www.disabilitiescommissionbahamas.org.
They have been there for me. I've been counting on them for everything that I'm needed and repairs on my vehicle.
Don't get hit with a remote.
From the Junkanoo archives on the Junkanoo timeline, the year was 1967. On the evening of January 10th, with the general election results deadlocked at 18, each for the UBP and the PLP, and one Labour and one Independent, the people of New Providence anticipating a coalition that would result in majority rule, celebrated in the way they best know how. In spontaneous celebration, they took to the streets with drums and cowbells, whistles and horns, and headed to Bay. Another significant moment on the Junkanoo timeline.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You listen to Junkanoo 242. The E-Shack is wide open this morning. We're going to have a very, very interesting conversation about Junkanoo costuming. Our topic this morning is, what is a Junkanoo costume? It's as simple as that. And this morning we have, this is a star-studded. No pun intended. Right? This is a star-studded pile of guests that we have this morning. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow each and every one of them to introduce themselves. I'm going to start with, who I think is the most senior one, Arlene. Who's the most senior one? I don't know. Must be.
Better ask them, you ask me.
Lord have mercy.
I think we're gonna start with the gentleman in the blue Androsia shirt. Look like he got Valley Boys on this shit. I ain't sure. Or that socks on this shit. I ain't sure.
It not only look like it, it is the Valley Boy.
Oh, it is the Valley Boy.
Yes, and I'm proud to be a Valley Boy.
Yes, sir.
Amen. Amen.
My name is Alexander Doyle Burrows. I've been involved with the Valley Boys from the inception. This year marks, I think it's 72 years of continuous involvement around Junkanoo in some form or the other. I started in 1950. This year I'll be 79. And I've been involved with Junkanoo longer than anything else in my life. Junkanoo and sports. Then marriage.
Incredible.
It's been a good run. It's been a good run, and I still enjoy the little things that I assist with now.
Great. And the gentleman, I believe, in the red cap.
Is it I?
I think it is.
Is it I? Is it I, Lord? Is it I?
It is.
Thou knowest. Yes, I'm a Emmanuel Wesley Francis. Some people know me as Manny, and that's all they know me as, Manny. And, introduced to Junkanoo by my brother, Percy Willa Francis, in 1966. Matriculating at the government high school at the age of 15. I let you know how old I am now, Doyle. And was so delighted for what I discussed with Mr. Farrington earlier was for the opportunity. I think the one thing that I had, being Willa's brother, was an opportunity to be intimately involved in what was going on, just first observing and then getting hands-on experience. And in a very, 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 very short time, was able to learn a lot of the Junkanoo skills, and to the point where I started at 66 in the back line. By 68 New Year's, my pasting skills had excelled to the point I was able to be a frontline beller at that time.
Big morning, big morning.
1968 with the
big morning.
With the crawfish.
Big morning.
The costume that Willa and I combined in the design of.
Wow.
Particularly with the hat construction, we built the crawfish hats, and we built it from tie wire. You saw the tie wire, I want to paste that. But anyway, and then 2 years later, I was able to lead the group down on our second victory in Egypt, 1000 BC, and introduced the 4-piece costume design concept, which is hat, shoulder piece, front piece, back piece, for the first time in Junkanoo. Wow. And since then, you know, it's shortly after that I went off to school, and so I wasn't as intimately involved with the day-to-day production, only when I would return from school. And I would send my drawings, of course. I would send my drawings, and then when we came back from school in 1981, then we became more involved and watched Junkanoo really evolve over the years. And I remember before going off, when the Ministry of Tourism was granting a trip to Trinidad for the Junkanoo leaders of the winning groups at that time, which were the Valley Boys, who won the Boxing Day, and the Saxons, who won the New Year's. And so Willa and I went along with Doyle and Gus. You remember that, Doyle?
Yes, sir.
And so we went to Trinidad. They sent us to Trinidad, and we went there, and then we were able to see how they did things. Their Junkanoo shacks, so to speak, where they did mass production of costumes, which is something we never did. We never did mass production. Everyone was responsible for the construction of their own costumes, but we were introduced to mass production and also to the use of aluminum rods. And of course, the kind of parading that they had, which was different from ours. At that time, I think our parading was, our costuming was more flat rather than 3D, except for the exception of John Chippy Chipman. He did a whole lot of chicken wire construction of 3D costumes at that time. But that was an evolutionary time, and I wonder how well it was because it really changed Junkanoo, because since that time we have what we call the carnivalization of Junkanoo. The Junkanoo became more and more carnival-like, and here you have the introduction of the women dances and so on. But I'm here. Whatever you want to know, I'll tell you. Thank you. Again, I thank the principals of 242, Junkanoo 242, for inviting me on. I consider it an honor and a privilege, and I'm certainly delighted to be here.
Privilege to have you here.
Mm-hmm.
And Cossie, are you there?
Hello. You hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. We can hear you.
My name is Costello Cleveland Cossie Fernander. I was introduced to Junkanoo by my two cousins, Roger the Merritt, Larry the Merritt, and actually bringing me into the fold of the Wally was Mr. Eddie Ford. And I guess Gus took me under his wings. I was his cutout boy. I got to see all of his costumes when nobody else could. Because the Wally boys back in the day, that they didn't want you to see their costume. And at that time, I think it was an honor and a privilege to me being that young to see all of the major costumes. And the construction part of Junkanoo, I learned from Mr. Doyle Burrows, my daddy. And I always remind Burrows when back in the day when they built costumes in the house, they couldn't get them out. And Burrows, everybody used to send to Doyle Burrows to get them out. Because he was the only person who could get them out of the house. That's my experience. I mean, I've learned some wonderful things from Doyle Burrows, Eddie Ford, Peter Turnquist, and none other than Gus Cooper. That's where I get most of my Junkanoo skills from. And I got Levon Manny Francis. he taught me the tricks part of Junkanoo.
Tricks?
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. I got a pretty good idea.
Yeah, like I said, it's the honor and a privilege to be on Junkanoo Talks with such people as Doyle Burrows and Manny Francis, who are the greats of Junkanoo. And Manny, me and you had this talk. I don't know if you could remember. We was talking about costume, and I think you told me you was the person who introduced the 4-piece to Junkanoo. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think you got enough credit for like I said, the things that you did in Junkanoo. But I just would like to put that out there that you was the person who did that.
Yeah, that's the impetus behind my book, The Manual of Junkanoo Costume Construction, which talks about the 4-piece Junkanoo costume concept. And for those who don't know what that is, that's hat, shoulder piece, front piece, and back piece.
Good.
Hats were there, of course, but the problem with Junkanoo was, because if you remember back in the day, and I'm sure Doyle would, I don't know if Darren would, because he just started shaving the other day. But you know, we would fringe with flour pop. First we would cook it to release the gluten to make it more gluey. But once you start to sweat, the paper dropped off. Pants and shirt were the most common dress. That's the covering that we had, and that's still, as I told Mr. Farrington earlier, still, if you're doing a Junkanoo costume, you cannot forget you need shirt, pants, and shoes. Before you get anything else on top of that, you need to have those under there. But in the earlier days, you know, that was shirt and pants were the main thing. and so when the perspiration came and the paper fell off, it really looks, by morning all your designs were gone. They looked nasty. So we had to devise something to cover that. So we used cardboard coverings to cover the front, the fly, the back piece to cover the sides of the pockets and the seat of the pants. Then the shoulder piece to cover the neck and the armpits, and then keep your costume design intact by morning. And that was one of the secrets of our success in costume designing. And it has become the fundamentals of Junkanoo design ever since, because all shoulder pieces basically are a circle. A circle with a hole cut in the middle goes over your head. From that you build, even the upper shoulder costumes are built off of that, the same thing. So these are the fundamental things. Of course, the Junkanoo skirt, the Junkanoo back piece has evolved into what they call now the skirt. We had, but the front piece is still there. So yes, Cossie.
I think you left out one thing with the pants and shirt. The odor. I mean, after you come up a Bay Street, people would try to break off or running from you because the odor was so bad.
Flower.
Flower, yeah.
The odor was so bad.
That's a rotten flower.
Sour flour, yeah. With the sweat, mixed with the sweat.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, it did. Yeah.
So, gentlemen, we have a burning question. This question came up because through observation over the past couple of years, I would say that I had this question, what exactly is a Junkanoo costume? Let's get deep into this conversation. In your mind, what is a Junkanoo costume?
Well, we defer to Doyle. He did it first.
No, but and like you say in the olden days or in the 60s, right? Junkanoo costumes was a straightforward. You got to give a straightforward answer in them. Like it was just basically pants and shirt.
Mm-hmm.
So it was comprised of
And then the shift.
Yeah, national dress. National dress.
Yeah. It was, because all the major groups, the costuming was basically a hat, a pants, and a shirt. Like Manny said, you didn't have shoulder pieces, you didn't have skirts. I think that came in 1960 when we started to bring designs. When the Valley Boys, we came out in 1960 with a design with the Scots Highlanders where we had to do the Scotch fringe, your Scotch plaid skirts.
Yeah.
Then you had your kilt, you had your hat, you had your leggings, you had your boots. That was like the turning point from just before that. Like I say, it's just like a cone hat.
Yeah.
Fluffy fringe.
Yeah.
Fluffy fringe, but the fringing aspect of Junkanoo in the 2000, it doesn't exist anymore. And when Darren asked about to come on and talk about costume, something has been on my chest from the day he asked me that.
Mm-hmm.
Because
get it off.
Before I forget, because at this age you got senior moments. And Manny, costuming has changed so much today. We sell Junkanoos so short. The art of what we knew when we were younger of Junkanoo doesn't exist today.
Ooh. Oh my!
And you can't. And I blame it from Junior Junkanoo too. I remember. I don't blame the organizers, but I blame the people who were involved with Junior Junkanoo. We started with shortcuts where we say we don't have to teach the children the art of fringing and all that, and we let them go away with just with a t-shirt and you see it 50 years later, you see what it's come to. Today, the Junkanoo people, Arlene is one of them too. The Junkanoo people, some of the Junkanoo people, they complain about carnival, the design of carnival. We today you could go in a store and buy all the necessities, all the things that you need to create a costume. No fringe. And that seems to be the norm. And you can't blame the people today for what has transpired over the years. Like the art of fringing. Like Cossie was an ace fringer. What we call fringing. People like Wilfred Johnson changed it to, he called it painting. I remember. Yeah. I was in Junkanoo for so many years, and the first time I saw, he had a black, I don't remember the animal he had, Cossie, but it was black. And when I saw it the first time, I looked at it about, must have been an hour trying to figure out how he fringed the thing, because I've never seen that before. And it's the same thing with the
that
children.
that would be Egypt birth.
Yeah, but when I'm black,
The jackal head. That would
yeah,
be
the
Egypt.
jackal. You know, and I said I was a Junkanoo all of my life. Then I should say, and to see that it was something different. It was the style was different, and it's like telling a child about fringing. You know, they've never seen it. That was in a different era, and like I said, today the era is things like I said, you could go in a store and you could buy everything you need for Junkanoo, and you don't even like the fellas say, you ain't even have no vet costume. You know, yeah, man. You could cut out everything and go to Bay Street, and you know, like we say, but some of us complain about Carnival. You know, the virtual thing that we had the other day. That was we call it Junkanoo, but it's the same thing we complain about, or some of the people complain about the Junkanoo. We have now reached a stage where we accept. It seems as though the people accept it as Junkanoo, and it's not Junkanoo that we knew 50 years ago, or 20 years ago, or 30 years ago. But that seemed to be the norm because we didn't teach the craft. The people who are involved, they don't know the craft. They only doing what they see around them now, and you want to get to be. And the easiest way out is you could buy everything and cut them out. There's no fringing no more. You cut out the pieces and they stick in. And you ain't got to mix no flour and water now. You get your hot glue gun. You know, it ain't like when you had the Elmer's, which was wet. This stuff now, this dry instantly. You could start your costume like Bastian to say you could start at an hour before, go to Bay Street and you dry as a chip. I don't know if any of you notice that trend now, but that's what we do now. You know, some of us complain about Carnival this and Carnival that, but we better than Carnival now. But we box it as Junkanoo. And you know, that's like I said, but we didn't the young people today who they didn't learn the old craft, and it's almost non-existent. I look at a piece that Agibum gave me, which was fringe, which was on a costume he had up 3 years ago, and it's all fringe. The average person will ask you who been in jungle say what that is. How did you do that? You know, how did you do that? And how did we, you know, we got to decide not we, but the organizers or the people who are involved with Junkanoo. I guess they have already decided which route they're going down because they say so much percent of decorations. The entire costume now is decoration. It is, you know. But that been on my mind for a long time. So I would just get it off first and foremost.
No, I think that's the type of discussion we want to have.
That's exactly it.
So, Mr. Burrows.
Yes.
In your mind, then, I'm asking this for clarity because I want everybody else to hear it. What is the craft of Junkanoo?
Well, when I was a boy, we used to take time. You know, it started with the crepe paper.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to cut the crepe paper. It was so soft, we used to cut it with the scissors. And it wasn't fine. It was just big chunks. And I think we saw the older people. When I was a child, some of the big pieces was done by Philip Kemp, the mortician. Then you had Mr. Bartlett had small pieces, very small. Just Philip and Lauer, maybe a 5-foot piece. Lenny Bartlett Lauer, a 6-inch piece. But they, you know, you went from one extreme to the next, and it's similar to the lead pieces we have today. I don't call them the lead pieces anymore. They're the pieces that's in the back because we spend so much money and time on those things, and the flow of your parades now, it can't flow because the lead piece is supposed to be the striking piece of the costume. When you see the lead piece, you say, well, I know what coming behind it got to be just as good. But the lead pieces, you know, and that everything was fringe.
Right.
Would be called fringe.
Right.
Now, when you see it today now, I guess everything is decorated. You know, that's the route that's the position that we seem to be in now, and it's accepted, I guess. It's accepted by the norm. You know, we complain, but I don't know what we're complaining for because we allow it. The leaders allow it to happen, I guess. You know, if I say it in another forum, they'll tell me, "Man, you old." Yeah, okay, I'll take 2 steps back and stay in my corner.
Very well put, Burrows. Very well put.
Manny, Cossie, what is the Junkanoo costume?
Well, Manny is my senior, so he should go.
All right.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for the reminder. Turn about it's fair play. I did the same thing to Doyle. and that's I think that's a very interesting question. You say, what is the craft? Is that it of Junkanoo?
Yeah, what is a Junkanoo costume, and then what is the craft of Junkanoo?
Well, that word in itself speaks for itself. Craft. Mm-hmm. It's a craft.
Right.
It's a craft, and it's something that is done with the use of the hands. You have to use the hands, okay? And it involves cutting and pasting, which I see our oldest grandson Jeremiah. He's 7 now. He likes to do that. He likes to get to the same desk where I'm at. Papa, give me the scissors, give me the paper, give me the glue, and give me the markers. He just goes to town. He cuts. So Junkanoo is like it's putting the craft together. Like it's like crafting. It's like you cut pieces, and just like how Doyle was saying, the way the Junkanoo pasting is now is more of a craft where you cut out the pieces, or as Mr. Farrington mentioned earlier about crafting. Like we would fringe the Junkanoo costume. Usually we cut the paper and paste it in strip. So Junkanoo is really a pasting art. It's a pasting art.
A pasting art.
Pasting.
And Manny, right?
Yeah.
My story. We have to go to a break. Don't forget that thought, people. You have to go to a break.
Yeah, I saw that on there.
Yeah. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, go to our first break and see you on the other side of the break.
Amen.
My news just getting into that. Sorry about that, Manny.
Yeah, I saw the break on there. I saw the break in the chat.
Yeah.
This child ain't mine, that's what I scream. When the noise bring me this boy, yes, I is real. My ma, she got like one day.
I don't feel my head. The bleeds coming in.
What you hear on this radio station is governed by IRCA's Code of Practice for Content Regulation. The Code of Practice covers matters relating to program content that are of concern to the community, such as local content, news, current affairs, and programs for children, advertising, including political advertisements, and the responsibilities associated with broadcasting in the Bahamas. The code also covers aspects such as access services for the hearing and visually impaired, and the procedure for lodging a complaint about anything broadcast by this station. The code is available on the IRCA website at www.ircabahamas.bs. To receive a copy of the code by mail or in person, you may telephone IRCA at 242-393-0234. Family Island dialing is toll-free at 1-242-300-8722, or you may send a request by email to info@irkabahamas.bs.
Oh, I didn't know yesterday. This was, did you call him out and find anything for me? Technology is something else.
From the Junkanoo Library, filed under N for New Year's. For decades, the people of the Bahamas have ushered in their new year in church and at Junkanoo. New Year's Junkanoo for many is an opportunity to bounce back from Boxing Day, especially for me. For many others, a time to give thanks for past blessings and to celebrate a new year. And so, repeat the words of the traditional Bahamian anthem that used to be heard on every New Year's Day morning on Bay Street. Spare me another year, oh Lord, our Junkanoo, starting off the new year in celebration.
Absolutely, as we have done for centuries. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Junkanoo 242, the whistle blow. We are lined up and now it's time for our first lap. And we are so honored this morning to have in the E-Shack with us, we talking the big dogs. We have Dr. Emmanuel Francis, we have Cossie Fernander, and we have Doyle Burrows, and we are having a stimulating conversation on Junkanoo costumes. If you want to join us, if you're listening via radio and you want to join us in New Providence, it's 325-5403, 325-5404, 325-5405. And in our family of islands, 1-242-300-8255. And so, gentlemen, you know, I got to tell you the truth. I'm trying, as a Christian, we are not supposed to get depressed. But let me tell you, this morning I'm taking down Christmas decorations. That makes you, that not really depressing, but it's a somber mood. And when I hear about, when we talk about how Junkanoo costumes have moved through the years, I don't call all movement forward progress. And you know, when Doyle talks about the cutting out and the pasting, the putting it in, and there's hardly any fringe going on, I just feel like in many ways Junkanoo is in trouble. And I understand. I am going to be 72 in March, and so I understand my perspective. It's based on my experience from I was 4 years old on Bay Street to now. And so I just wonder what we can do. And I don't want to take the conversation away from the costuming, but I'm just wondering what we can do to reintroduce these skills that are peculiar to Junkanoo, that make us unique, that we pass on to our children. But that's another story for another time. I'm trying to focus on costumes, but boy, I tell you, it's not a pretty picture. And so, Darren, Bastian, pick up your questioning where you left off, and let's roll with roll.
We left at Manny's, and he started to expound on the fact that Junkanoo is a pasting art. I think that's where Manny was going with that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's pasting as far as an our time is concerned. But if we go back, Arlene, now, and when I got a call from Africa, I can't remember his name exactly, but he called me from Baltimore when he knew I published this book on the history of the Saxons. And he challenged me to do a history of Junkanoo in itself, And so when we look at, if you go on the internet and you look at some of the costuming that you see before our time, Doyle, maybe in Doyle's time, maybe when Doyle was somewhere crawling around the crib, you would see the costumes were made of cloth. They had what appeared to be like rags hanging. So, and then they would wear the mask, and then I believe it comes from, and this is where, when we look at Junkanoo from a costume standpoint, we're looking at the evolution, but we're starting from the time around the 60s. But Junkanoo, the origin of Junkanoo costuming goes way further back than that.
Yeah.
Well, Manny, you know, when I was, like, before the 60s, I was also involved, but I know about the cloth and the sponge.
Yes. So how was the sponge attached?
I don't know how they must have, I think they
sewed it on, I think.
Sewed it on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember, you're talking about sewing, I remember my brother in the 50s. There was a lady, a Trinidad, I think she was from Trinidad, Miss Lovell, Ann Lovell's mommy. I think she was related to the Wilsons on the corner of Hawkins.
Ann Lovell Wilson, right. Jerry and those mummy. Yeah.
The first costume my brother went, she made. And like I said, she was foreign in the Bahamas, but she was in the costume and she sewed it on. She has a machine and she sewed the paper on I remember this brown, this is a brown, I don't know if it's crepe paper or whatever, because I was very young then.
The meat wrapping paper?
So they did have the era where they sewed things on, and I mean, she sewed it with a machine.
Right.
You know, the old hand machine. And
yes.
Even in my time, a lot of things, we sewed, you know.
Yeah.
Before the
yes, contact.
The fringing and all that, and we sewed we had brown cotton that we made the like what you call them, the sack.
Yeah.
And you put it on onto that. But like you say, the evolution, you can see it. We changed, like the 60s, It came something else. But the evolution is very true now. It appears that the craft of the 60s has left us, because we evolved so much that we make it as easy and accessible as we can, I guess. And it ain't like it's us older froggies making noise about it. We might as well get in line, because it seems as though the generation of now is what they know of, and they look at it the easiest way. And I guess we did the same thing. Maybe we gone from sewing to glue, and now it's everything is cut out. We never cut out. We fringed everything. Now they're cutting out everything. They don't fringe anything. Everything they do is they make a pattern and they just cut it out and stick it in.
Right.
Which is, you know, nothing wrong with it. Nothing is wrong with it.
If I could chime in just for a few seconds, because Cossie, we need to get to your definition of the costuming. When you start to talk about the evolution, what I'm observing is that prior to what you said with the Valley Boys bringing a theme, or groups bringing a theme to Bay Street, you have more of a free flowing, or more of not a confinement of what a costume depicted in terms of with coming to Bay Street. However, when groups started to organize themselves to depict a theme during that 1960s, bringing themes like the crawfish or the beef eater, people wanted you started to portray that theme, and things became more themed. We would agree on that.
Yeah.
Okay. With that being said, one of the components of a Junkanoo costume, I would argue, is that one of the components is that it depicts the theme of the group. We would say that's one of the components. right?
It is.
I wouldn't include that in my definition of a Junkanoo costume.
Okay.
I could have on a Junkanoo costume and not be depicting anything. I don't count that as a component, as an important part of a Junkanoo costume.
Okay.
Personally.
That's more of the design. That's more of the design of the costume.
Okay.
Right.
That doesn't speak to how the costumes are made.
The costume itself, exactly.
Yeah.
A scrap portrays what we call Junkanoo more than anything else.
Thank you very much. Exactly.
Let's throw some paper together at the time and go
and
have
let's
some
go.
fun.
Exactly. That's the essence right there.
Yeah.
I think Doyle, you're right in that, because I think if you look at the origin of it, Junkanoo is like a free spirit. And so when you have scrap groups, per se, quote unquote, that they have a kind of a free spirit where they can just release whatever is within them without any restrictions, without having to be regimented. Because when you're parading, and if you want to win a parade, parading is key. How you parade, that is, how you line up, how you perform, and so on and so forth. And so you're guided by that competition. It's driven by competition.
And Manny, you are absolutely right.
Can be free spirit. Yeah.
Yeah. Because when you talk about how we parade, to me, it's the same as how we perform, which is very different from Russian. Very different from Russian nowadays because of the competition we perform in, and we are parading. But traditionally in Junkanoo we rush, and so that's another story for another time as well.
Winning and losing took the fun out of Junkanoo. To lose. Anytime you put up prizes, you change the outlook. If like say for instance, when you play in sports, if you don't have a prize or winner or not, like a display and what you call for the fun, you don't have any arguments, You're playing for the fun. And it's the same thing with Junkanoo. I always tell people why I stopped going to B Street was I can't take the stresses of winning and losing.
Mm-hmm.
The competition is so great now. It put that added stress on you. You want to win, and some people win at all costs. That they would cheat.
Mm-hmm.
Winning and losing, bringing in the cheating element with some people. Yeah, they would
every year.
In sports, the same thing. You got the fellas that are doping and all that to win. And the same thing is, the winning and losing, it brings in the thing that at any cost to win. And the enjoyment, like you said, the spontaneous thing and jumping, like when we were small, I remember in the 50s, we used to cut up newspaper, and newspaper wasn't accessible to us as it is now. You live in the valley, you might get one newspaper and you start to save newspaper and you cut that up, and if the roach don't eat up all your paper before Junkanoo, you save. But once you put that flour and water on it, you encourage the roach to come get lunch too.
Put the kerosene oil in there.
Yeah, that's stop them a little bit.
So I've heard quite a bit. I've heard this conversation go through a few phases, right? I've heard the word evolution. I've heard the discussion regarding what did we have before we had pasting, fringing, that kind of thing. Because that's what, right? And is it then safe to say then, I think Mr. Burrows may have said it, that the craft of the 60s is dead, and now the Junkanoo costuming is going through a new evolution? Is it safe to say that?
I don't think that the craft for the 60s is dead. It's non-existent almost now. Because, it seems as though the people who are around today, either they didn't know the craft or they didn't care to carry the craft on, and you try to make things, they say, easier, and then when the materials start to surface that made it easy for them, that's the route they went down, and you know, your rules probably cater to things like that. I don't know.
So here is Greg Barrett's question on Facebook, and I think this gets at the crux of the matter. What is it that differentiates a Junkanoo costume? I lost it. That differentiates a Junkanoo costume from another costume today. And I find that question so pertinent because over the past month, I had the privilege of doing a presentation on Junkanoo for the National Museum of Jamaica, and also on a second interview I did for a Jamaican television station that was doing a special on Junkanoo, they call it. And they both said the same thing when they saw the clips on YouTube, and even commenting on the Junkanoo pieces behind my head. Their comment was, it looks just like Carnival. And so, you know, I understand that Junkanoo will evolve from the plant material and the bush and the sponge from the plantation days, and it will move forward through the newspapers. Yeah, we do have all of this displays in our museum. But at what point do we kind of pause and say, is this evolution? Is this progress? What do we want to keep? And what do we want to discard? I mean, at what point do we stop this progress, that quote unquote progress, that causes us to look like other parades, like other costumes, and there's nothing distinctive about us?
Well, Arlene, the difference is, if you look at through all the decades that Junkanoo, that we know it as, we were using what was available.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think the people today is doing the same thing.
True.
They're using what's available. Like we say, we went through the era where we sewed things on in the 60s.
Yes, yes.
Costumes, we sewed it on. Then then you went to the evolution where you mix the flour and water. Then you went to do Elmer's glue.
Yes.
Contact cement. Now it's the hot glue.
Yes.
And you know, nobody couldn't tell us at the time not to do that. We went to we started with the strips, then we had the aluminum rods. Now we do electric welding.
Yeah.
You know, and it seemed to be that it's what's available, and you have
what
to decide.
You find in your environment.
Whatever, you got to decide now. You know, we can't keep telling them, say, this is the way we did it. You didn't teach me that. It's just like not straying, but you're talking about we celebrating something on Monday, and if you ask out of 100 people, if you ask 90 of them what you celebrate Monday, they can't tell you.
It's true.
You know, but I told the people that I remember when I hear the people advertising on the radio and they talk about all these events that happen. Some of them, in the back of my mind at my age now, you tend to forget certain things.
Mm-hmm.
But I could reflect on all of those things because I lived it. That happened, 50 plus years ago. And most of them, I was already married when they happened. You know, I've been married now 57 years, going on for 58 years. So I lived all those things. And it's the same thing with I assume with Junkanoo. Like you say, some things evolve for the betterment, and some not so much for the betterment. And it's called new eyes, you see it in, you know. It's adaptability. You know.
We have to go to our break, right? But this is what I want us to ponder. And I want to get back to the gentleman's question on Facebook, because I want us to consider or ask ourselves over the break, what does a carnival costume looks like, and what is it that defines what a carnival costume is? Because perhaps if we understand that, we can have a better, we can also speak more to how that has a brand of its own, and we are still getting a better idea of what our true brand is. So we'll talk about that on the other side of the break.
Mm-hmm.
The Princess Margaret Hospital Blood Bank is in urgent need of blood donations of all types. Blood bank hours of operation are as follows. Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The last donor will be accepted at 4:30 p.m. On Sundays, the blood bank is closed. Identification needed for donation include your NIB card or driver's license. Do not attempt to donate if you are sick or experiencing respiratory symptoms. Do not come to the blood bank in large groups, as we will be accommodating 3 persons at a time. For more information on how you can become a blood donor or instructions on what to do before coming to donate blood, please contact the blood bank at 502-7822.
Respect the sign. When vehicles without an accessible parking permit use a parking space designated for persons with disabilities, even for just a minute, that's 60 seconds too long. The abuse of accessible parking spaces is a daily frustration for persons with disabilities. It is inconsiderate, insensitive, and hinders persons with disabilities from effectively conducting business and actively participating in community life. Never park in a space reserved for people with disabilities unless you have a permit to do so. It is the right and respectful thing to do. This message is brought to you by the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities, a unit in the Ministry of Social Services and Community Development. For more information, visit www.disabilitiescommissionbahamas.org.
Examples of excellence. Every year on his birthday, which was December the 26th, Sammy Thompson celebrated on Bay Street doing what he loved best. An intelligent, articulate, and personable young man, Sammy pursued junk with the same ardor that he pursued his studies. Sammy not only loved Junkanoo, but lived for it. In the 1970s, Sammy became leader of the Music Makers at the tender age of 21. Under his magical direction, the Music Makers won 3 consecutive Boxing Day victories on Bay Street, introducing a full brass line in the process. Sammy's love for Junkanoo and his determination and dedication carried him and the Music Makers to Bay Street each year, despite the lack of sponsorship. He will forever be remembered, especially on his birthday, Boxing Day. Sammy Thompson, this week's posthumous inductee into the Junkanoo 242 Shack of Excellence.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Junkanoo 242, and we're having a very interesting discussion this morning about a simple topic, a simple question: what is a Junkanoo costume? And before we went to the break, I challenged our guests to define, and to the best of their knowledge, why is it that we could compare. We could identify what a carnival costume looks like, and then what is the carnival brand as opposed to what the Junkanoo brand is. I hope I asked that question correctly.
Bastian.
Yes, sir.
You know, in the 60s, when we went to carnival for the first time. It was obvious at that time the difference between Junkanoo and Carnival. My observation at the time was that we have to do everything that they do to create a costume, especially like a lead piece at the time. But the difference is they gotta find materials. Say for instance, they was building a leopard or a lion. They could find the material to cover the leopard or the lion to look exactly like the leopard or the lion should look. Whereas at the time we had to go to that stage, but we had to go to a stage further and come and paste the colors in. Like with the leopard have the stripes.
Yeah, we gotta paste it.
We had to paste it in. Whereas they could go at that time and purchase the material. Like they could do their construction underneath and they could cover the lion or the leopard with the leopard skin that you could go in the store and buy it. Today, we're to that stage now. We've caught up. Junkanoo seemed to have caught up where we could go to the store and buy the leopard skin. We don't seem to be fringing the leopard anymore. We to that stage where we saw in the 60s or the 70s at Carnival. And like I say, not every, but a lot of people are it's just human nature that we try to make things easier for ourselves and we leave the craft behind. And that's
why does Carnival have to be our yardstick? Why do we have to look like Carnival? Why can't we stay distinct and different?
Because
and not try to emulate other festivals.
But see, we use this word Carnival loosely. Carnival is a parade. It's a form of a parade. Like I see, we emulate the carnival that the Bahamas emulates. It's Trinidad Carnival,
right?
You know, it show a lot of body and the nakedness. Because if you go say to for instance to me, which is the greatest carnival in the world, is Brazil. But it's they carry it to another extreme, costuming. You know, they have some of the naked and all of that, but then everything ain't fettered. And with us now, we feather everything. We feather a fish. We don't put scale on the fish. We put feathers on the fish, like it's scales. You know, we feather. The perception is it's the easy way. And it's accessible. You could buy a feather, give you. Your costume is 5 feet, and when you get them long plume feathers, you got 10 feet and they ain't do nothing, and you ain't got no weight. But they're accessible. You could purchase them, and that's, you know, like I said, I could have in the 60s. You could see the difference between Carnival and Junkanoo. The media in 2022 ain't no difference now. The music, yes, the music. They had steel band. We got drums, and cowbells, and the brass. They don't have most of them. Like Brazil don't have brass or percussion. Everything is percussion.
That's depressing.
So, and guess what? I made a comment on the show a few months ago. I think it was. I said, I asked this question. If you take the costumes that we're using in Junkanoo now, and you put it on a carnival parade, would you know it?
No.
You wouldn't know it, right?
No.
So what we know or what we knew as Junkanoo then is, like you said, either dead or on life support. Because the thing that really defined, or one of the uniquenesses about, one of the things that made our costumes unique was the craft, not the art of fringing.
Yeah, that's
we hardly have that.
That's almost non-existent now because Because we didn't, you know, we changed the game. Like the fellas say, we went from Bahamian dollars to US dollars. You know, all of his money, but it looked different. And right. I think that's what we've done to, you know, like some people say there ain't nothing wrong with it. It's what you want, you know. It's actually what you want. Wow. You know, we allowed it, but you know, we allowed it, and I guess it's what they want.
Wow. I guess the real question is, where do we go from here? How do we put things in place to get back to that?
Because people don't look back no more.
Nope. Well, that's true.
We made it so easy. Like I say, you fringed everything. The fella ain't gonna fringe nothing now. He gets some tracing paper, and he traces it out, and he make a pattern out of it and stick it in. Why going back to where you got to glue it and you got to fringe it, you got to cut the paper, the art and all that, you know.
So
that was the beauty of it, though.
Say it again, Cossie.
That was the beauty of doing all those things, sitting down. I remembered back in the day when Junkanoo was getting ready to wrap up. Me and Robert Ferguson, by the way, Burrows, Robert retired the other day.
Yeah, I know.
Check and find all the Junkanoo paper that we could scrap. And you know what we used to do? 3 months after Junkanoo, we used to start cutting paper, and until say about around September, we had enough paper cut that we carried through the whole next season. But nobody even think about, cutting paper anymore. But I glad to say one thing, that the big costumes are really getting back to pasting. If you notice a lot of the big costumes, there's some of them are pasting out. But as far as any other costume, I don't on the off the shoulders. I see a couple paste, which is a good sign, because man, sometimes you wonder where Junkanoo is headed.
They said it's by
and it's frightening. It's frightening.
Yeah, but you listen there. You have it goes back to those who are in charge and who is responsible for organizing the parades or to set the rules in place. It goes back from leadership. This what they what is it, JLA?
JCNB.
JCM, that's the. But they set the parameters of what you could do and what you can't do. And that's comprised of the people who are in charge of the groups.
To me, Burrows, some rules should have been put in place long ago about, how much decorations you could use, how much feathering you could use. Those rules should have been put in place. Because without the rules, anybody we've been going haywire.
They have them, but the rules is same as though the reverse. You had like 10% decoration and 50% infringing. It's 75% decoration.
The rules still say that your costume must be completely fringed, but that only, I think, is something like 50% of it must be covered by decorations. But as far as I could recall, the rules still say that your costume must be completely fringed, and that's being ignored. And you see, this opens up a whole new ball game with the judges and what they are looking for and what they know and what they understand. Because remember now, the rules said that the costumes must be completely fringed the morning when you all brought those beautiful freedom fighters with the carved heads, which technically should have been disqualified. But they because they were not fringed, but they won. And so the whole discussion of the decision of the judges influencing the forward direction of the parades is another issue as well.
Yeah, but this should be ironed out before it reached the judges.
But Doyle, you know what the problem is with the JCNP? The problem is, like you said at the beginning, everybody want to win. And that's why I have always advocated that we have some kind, not board, because we are not giving up control of our parades to anybody, but we need an advisory board that will advise the JCNP in terms of the heritage and the historical part of Junkanoo, what they should advise, what we should keep and what we should let go. Only advice, because I don't think we should give up control of our parades to anybody.
I can be the devil's advocate this morning.
Yeah.
What we got now? What do we call the money we got now? Dollars?
Dollar.
No, but they got another word is to call it. When we have the pound, shilling, and pence, then they say there's going to. I remember in the 60s, the fellas, when I used to play rugby, they came from Yale and Dartmouth, and the gentlemen say, "Oh, y'all going to decimal currency?" And I didn't know what the fellow was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The Junkanoo committee, or the people who us old frogies, still talking about the pound, shilling, and pence, and these fellas on this decimal currency, they getting ready to go. They're getting ready now to go to cryptocurrency. And that's new word. See, and we have, not we, when I say we, the people who in charge of the organizations, the groups run the parade. You know, apparently this is what they want, because this is what's happening. You know, we say, oh, we look like carnival. We look like carnival, but we allow the Junkanoo to do the easy route. And the carnival route, like I say, I can go to Toons and buy everything I need.
Yep.
But you know what I find so
I go in the mall to see if you got any youth.
But you know what I find so amazing, that
you know,
you would actually face a Junkanoo costume and cover up everything, not allowing the colors to show, not allowing the art to show. I just find that ridiculous.
Yeah, but you know,
I agree.
The fella put a yellowy and this spot and red and this spot, and when you come with them rick-rack with them bead all over the fella color scheme.
And stones.
You know, see, that ain't the way carnival was. I blame us who started it. But what the word was, I was telling the fellow is, it ain't no use putting on rouge on your lip if you don't need it, or putting a bunch of powder on your cheek. These people today, they overkill, and the reason why they do it is because that's what they see around, and they figure that's what the carnival ain't like that. Carnival ain't like that. But that's the culture that we do. And it's like training. We have my good friend, the dentist there. He was trained to be a dentist. He had to go to school and train to be a dentist. The people today, they ain't trained to do what they're doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
so now I'm gonna you were the devil's advocate. Let me best be the devil then. You know what you said then. Yes, you know, yes, I was trained to be a dentist, but I learned through practical experience that I had to be a minister of oral health.
Yeah,
which is a different thing, which is a different concept, because here you're treating the whole man. The mouth doesn't walk in by itself. It's attached to a body, and that body has a spirit and soul. So it's comprehensive. So now when we look at Junkanoos, as far as the training goes, one of the impetus behind writing this book, the Manual of Junkanoo Costume Construction, was to assist or to be a literary resource, not a principle, to be a literary resource for the practical component of a Junkanoo curriculum. You see, and so when we said that we want to include Junkanoo into the curriculum, you hear from the educators, well, the curriculum is already crowded. Crowded with what? It's already crowded. So we have our curriculum so crowded that these things, there's no room for these things to take place. But you know, we have to be able to, when we came along, Cossie, as you alluded to earlier, you were Gus's cutter. In other words, he would draw a design on the cardboard and you cut it out.
Yes.
And the way we did it back in the 60s and in the early 70s was, hey, you would cut out your own costume. You had to cut it out yourself and assist in the fabrication of it. You had a hands-on approach. But then we adopted from Trinidad and Carnival, we adopted that mass production concept.
Okay.
You see, now the advantage of the mass production was the way Carnival was organized. Help me, Doyle, if I go astray here, but they would have Junkanoo. They would have Carnival production centers or whatever they call it, shacks or whatever, or bands, and they would mass produce costumes, and then the costumes would be for sale, so anyone could come in and buy a costume. So it was like a business.
We're gonna have to take a break right there.
So you don't have to be loyal to Mitchell or any of these other bands. We just wanted to participate.
Okay, folks, we're gonna run to our final break. Where boy, this Ali, I hope you tell them they coming back next week because we only touched the iceberg today. But anyway, we're running to our final break and we're gonna be right back.
Lord Jesus. And then the week after,
Man, we start good yet.
Oh Lord, I'm busy. Oh, vision back. 90 carats. Can't hear you.
Amari, go ahead and bring me that picture with my grandma. I think it's either in my room or on the by the washer.
Darren, you look a little unhappy.
No. I am contemplating, right? Because I'm wondering, what is it now that we have that really makes us unique? Because if you strip away the music, we don't look like anything else other than everything else.
Yeah. So we lost our uniqueness, you say.
Right, because in my mind, that is one of the things that made our Junkanoo unique. And that's what, as Mr. Burrows said it earlier, in the 60s, you could put two costumes together, and that's a jungle costume and that's a carnival costume.
Right.
The carnival brand has pretty much remained. And you know how you tell that? It's simply feathers,
But that's a picture though. But if you check the audio, I think our music is still unique.
No, definitely, 1,000%. 1,000%.
I think our music is the one thing that we have that's really keeping us
information services.
Unique. I would say.
Watch this, Manny. Watch this. We can put this down, right? We can put this art form down, right? Somebody else can come in 50 years and claim it as their own.
Are you still right?
Huh?
You do something about that now. You still right?
I didn't quite understand what you were saying there.
My point is.
What do you mean?
My point is. Let me tell you how this came before for me. I was scanning through the newspaper a few years ago, right? And they had this Japanese woman or something. They did this thing of paper. And she was saying, oh, this is Junkanoo. And I was like, wow.
Make your appointment today.
I said, that ain't the Junkanoo. I know.
.bs.
But because we are moving so far from
this message is brought to you by
the
Ministry of Health in conjunction with Bahamas Information
Services. When we truly
Services.
let it go, and in time someone else can pick it up and say, man, this Junkanoo, I created this. That's my point. And we would have lost something that is so innate to us.
And somebody said they created that Saxon Egypt 1000 BC design.
Exactly.
They said that they did that. I said, oh, really? Well,
all right.
We'll see.
Good Good morning. You are tuning in to Junkanoo 242. Welcome back. These folks so hot. Boy, this conversation on what is a Junkanoo costume is really off to something. And now for our news off the shock wall. We want to extend a special happy birthday greetings, who is still celebrating, one of our guests today, Mr. Cossie Fernander. Happy birthday to you. He celebrated yesterday. And also a special birthday who's celebrating today, Darissa Delancey, who's celebrating her birthday today. And to everybody else, have a prosperous new year. We want to expand a special condolences. We want to say to the family of Mr. Sir Sidney Poitier, truly a Bahamian hero. And to everybody out there who's going through this time of loss and bereavement, our prayers are especially with you and as you go through this time. And the countdown, because these people getting ready to bring their
Stop that.
Man, Manny, you gotta be ready, man. Listen,
This
is January 8th, man. We 50 weeks away from Bay.
Oh, man. Come to mind this one. You sure we go to bed?
Is it going to be a virtual retirement? Is it going to be a virtual parade?
No, sir. No more virtual parade. No.
What is the definition? What? I remember Herbert Bain telling me, and I noted that in my book, and that is that Junkanoo has two components. One is the participant, and the other is the spectator. And when the two intermingle, then you create this thing called Junkanoo.
The participant and the spectator.
Exactly. You don't have Junkanoo. You don't have Junkanoo unless someone is there to interact, and you have like one feeds off the other.
Yeah, it's a transference.
I totally disagree with that. Totally disagree with that. Totally disagree
with that.
What would you say?
I don't care who watching or who ain't watching. I am out there for me. I'm not out there to entertain anybody. I totally disagree. Totally. No, dear. I'm not performing for anybody. I out there rushing for me.
But there's an interaction which takes place though.
With self. There's an interaction. There's an interaction with self. There's an expression that whoever is watching
when the drums
that whoever is watching get to see. But
that drums,
that expression is not dependent on somebody seeing me.
Because when we talk, what my answer if I have to give my answer to the question. Sorry,
Junkanoo is like theater, isn't it? I mean, because if you're an actor,
that's what we have made it.
Theatrical performance.
That's what we have made. That's what the parade. That's what the parade is. That is what
you on stage and there's no audience.
See it. The parade.
That's what we made it.
Yes, that is what we've made it. We've made it a theater. But Junkanoo, we go through this a lot, and people say, well, why we keep on running into these problems? We keep on running into the problems is because we're trying to pacify the spectator who's looking on, when actually the spectator has come to see us in our natural state. You understand? That's the joy. That's the uniqueness. Every time you change the bar of trying to quote unquote pacify somebody who's coming to see you, your authenticity now changes. Because next year they won't see you in yellow. And next year they won't see you like this. So where is your authenticity in this? And that's why I can't agree that a spectator have to do with your expression as a Junkanoo.
Well, unfortunately, Junkanoo was a masquerade. And so you didn't know who it was that was performing. Okay? But, some people have taken their masks off. See, some people take the hat off. See me here. So apparently there's a hunger for Junkanoos to be, I don't know, to get some feedback from the audience.
Oh boy!
My thoughts ran on Megan.
I don't know how much limbo and I would do it.
You know who Megan was.
Yes.
Not cutting you off, man. You know what I find so strange? Every time I pass from Sienna Drive, and look inside their yard where East Bay Service used to rush. That's so small for a whole group to be rushing around a well. I find that
it is. Yeah.
But Cossie, you look where you grew up. Look where you grew up to Our Lady's Corner, or your mommy or your grandma. There was big yards, you know. If you look at them today.
By the way, my Grammy would have been 122 on January the 5th, which is my insurance birthday also.
Okay.
Wow.
I know you remember the chicken moment.
The chicken moment.
The chicken moment? What she has to do?
Every time I would go to her, she was from Governor's Harbor. And she was some of my grandmother's family. She said, she's always asked, you bring any chicken? Say, I love chicken, you know. Don't care how much time I saw her, she would tell me that I go like to Cossie them to corner by Our Ladies. And she would always say she's from Governor's Harbor and they love chicken. And that's why we call her Chicken Lady.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, we are so sorry that we must bring this wonderful morning session to a close. We have invited our very special guest back. This conversation cannot be contained in one show. And so, gentlemen, please bear with us. We look forward to having you here next week again, same time, same place. I feel like we have only scratched the surface, and you have so much to contribute, and we are truly, truly grateful. And so, I hope Mr. Producer will just allow you to say your closing words for this segment. Let's start with Doyle. Doyle, please, final words.
Well, it was a joy to come with old people like my friend Manny and Cossie, the Aunt Arlene. You ain't missed it. See those Darren and them, and two Darren, eh?
Yeah,
young boys.
Yes.
They're young boys, but
young.
You know, because these days you can't even come to the station no more. And I so used to being confined that I don't miss anything. I could stay home in my yard, stay home in my house, and I could walk down to my children.
That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, we don't miss nothing no more.
I'm waiting on when you turn 60, Cossie, you're supposed to have something on your birthday for your friends, even if it's only soup. Soup next month.
Well, we coming to visit. Me and Fen coming to visit you next week.
Yes, sir. next month, 9th of February.
Yes,
right.
Thank you, Doyle. We can see you next week. Manny.
Yes. Well, once again, I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to come on Junkanoo 242. It's been a long time. I haven't even been doing much listening to any Junkanoo shows or anything of the like. I try to keep myself focused on other things right now than Junkanoo. And, you know, ever since our group disbanded 10 years ago,
10 years.
When One Love disbanded 10 years ago, I hadn't been on Bay Street. Well, I did go to watch the parade in 12, Boxing Day, and I said, this is not for me. So I never went there. But so it's a kind of a cycle, so to speak, where we've come, if you can imagine, coming full circle back to like 10 years ago, so to speak. So we're coming now back into the Junkanoo arena, so to speak.
Yeah.
And hopefully, with using these kinds of platforms, we'll be able to somehow preserve our culture for posterity.
Amen.
Because that, I think that is what is critical. And this is one of the reasons why I try the literary approach. And I will continue in that vein. And certainly, I must say, I must thank you guys for hanging in there all these years. You know, because sometimes these things could be challenging. You know, to
tell us about it.
People's interest in something that is 12, you know, that's 11 months away. You know, that's a challenge in itself. And so you keep the excitement going. And so I congratulate 242 for that and keep up the good work, and we'd be glad at any time to assist wherever we can.
Yes,
Thank
next
you.
week.
Thank you.
Don't forget.
Next week. Uncle
Don't-
Cos, you got
don't
the
go missing.
final word.
It's an honor and a pleasure to be hanging out with you ladies and gentlemen, on this special day. It was a pleasure, and for me, I try to enjoy life now. Let me tell you a little story before I finish. Back in the day, I spent most of my time in the Junkanoo shack, and I didn't have much time for my girls. I said if I ever had grandchildren, I would spend most of my time, and that's what I do now. Spend most of my time with my grandchildren.
Beautiful. And they are the richer for it. Beautiful. So, ladies and gentlemen, on that beautiful note, we thank these gentlemen again being a very special guest this morning. Big dogs in the E-Shack. And we will continue this conversation next week. And so until then, thank you for being a part of our show. This is Junkanoo 242. It's all about you wherever you are in the 242. And until next week, God willing, make sure now that you let everybody know by everything that we do that we are all proud to be Bahamian. We'll see you next week.
Oh, good. Oh, don't go there now.